Excellent. You and Elvis. All right. Good afternoon. Sorry to keep you waiting. This morning, the Secretary-General spoke at the Women's Day Observance in the General Assembly Hall. He said that gender inequality is the overwhelming injustice of our age and the biggest human rights challenge that we face. He stressed there is no justification for women's continued exclusion and praised women's efforts to redefine what power looks like. Women have had enough, he said, and they are creating new inclusive forms of leadership that unite people across borders and common goals. He said the activists at the end, he told the activists at the end of the event to keep up the pressure and hold the world to account, and reiterated that he is determined to achieve gender parity at all levels at the United Nations. He also emphasized that the more important than ever for men to stand up for women's rights and gender equality. At 3 p.m., he will speak to the group of friends on gender parity and will give an update on the UN's efforts to achieve gender parity. And this afternoon, he'll speak at the COP26 briefing and will stress the importance of this year's climate conference. He will also call for an increased action to ensure that we can achieve emissions reductions of 45% from 2010 levels this decade and reach net zero emissions by mid-century. Mr. Guterres will also stress that COP26 needs to demonstrate that the world is moving quickly and in the right direction. This morning, the Deputy Secretary-General, Mina Mohammed, departed to Papua New Guinea to launch the Spotlight Initiative to end violence against women and girls and commemorate International Women's Day, as well as highlight the importance of empowering women and youth as parts of efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. She will be accompanied by the Executive Director of UNAIDS, as well as the Secretary-General's Special Envoy on Youth. Next Wednesday, Ms. Mohammed will travel to Dhaka in Bangladesh, where she will continue to focus on the decade of action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, with a particular focus on gender equality, inclusive economic growth, and climate action. She will also visit Cox's Bazar, which, as you know, is hosting a large population of Rohingya refugees. The Deputy Secretary-General will also meet with heads of state, senior government officials in Bangladesh, UN country teams, and business leaders, women and youth leaders, as well as civil society from both in Bangladesh and in Papua New Guinea. We have been asked a number of times about the situation on the border between Turkey and Greece, and I can tell you that the Secretary-General calls for calm and easing of tensions on Turkey's border with the European Union. The Secretary-General fully supports the recommendations of the UNHCR to address the situation. He also encourages the international community to step up support for Turkey's refugee response. Given the massive displacement and deteriorating humanitarian situation in Idlib, the Secretary-General believes it is absolutely critical to support the overall UN interagency response to address humanitarian needs there. And also on Syria, you will have seen that yesterday afternoon we issued a note to correspondents in which we said that the Secretary-General took note that Russia and Turkey had reached an agreement at the highest level for a ceasefire to go into effect in the Idlib de-escalation area as of midnight. The Secretary-General hopes that this agreement will lead to an immediate and lasting cessation of hostilities that ensure the protection of civilians in northwest Syria, who both have already endured enormous suffering. The Secretary-General calls for a return to the UN-facilitated political process mandated by Resolution 2254, and I think the Security Council is holding consultations on Libya as we speak. Turning to Guyana, I can tell you that we are following with concern the latest developments there, particularly the allegations that the tabulation of votes from one of the regions, namely Region 4, was not done according to proper legal procedures. We take note of the statements issued by international observers and ambassadors accredited in Georgetown, also raising concern over the situation. We call on all Guyanese to remain calm, exercise restraint, and address any dispute arising from the process through legal channels. And on Afghanistan, the UN assistance mission in Afghanistan condemned today's attack in Kabul, with initial reports indicating that nearly 30 civilians were killed and many more injured, including women and children. The Secretary-General's Special Representative, Mr. Yamamoto, strongly condemned the deliberate attack on civilians, adding that those who organized and enabled it must be brought to justice. And I expect a statement from the Secretary-General on that shortly. And our regular COVID-19 update, Dr. Tedros, the head of WHO, told reporters in Geneva that the number of confirmed cases is now on the verge of reaching 100,000. As cases increase, WHO continues to recommend that all countries make containment their highest priority, calling on countries to find, test, and isolate and care for every case. He stressed that slowing down the epidemic saves lives and buys time for preparedness as well as for research and development. As you may recall, last month, WHO convened a meeting of more than 400 scientists to identify, prioritize, and today they are publishing a research and development roadmap, distilling ideas from that meeting into a core group of priorities in 9 key areas, including vaccines, ethical considerations, and epidemiology. Also today, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Madame Bachelet, said it is essential that governments undertake actions to reduce the potentially negative impact that measures to combat COVID-19 may have on people's lives. And as a medical doctor herself, she said she understands the often difficult balancing act when hard decisions need to be taken, but stressed our efforts to combat the virus won't work unless we approach it holistically, which means taking care to protect the most vulnerable and neglected people in society, both economically and medically. And also on human rights, on Yemen, our human rights colleagues today expressed their concern over 35 Yemeni parliamentarians that have been sentenced to death on the charge of treason in absentia by a court in Houthi-held Sana'a. The UN Human Rights Office calls on the de facto authorities there to immediately quash the sentences against these members of parliament and to ensure their families are not harassed. And we have reached the wonderful number of 65 in terms of member states who have paid their dues in full, and we have received $92,110,939 from this member state. Can anybody take a guess? We're not talking. Go ahead.
That was good money, you know what I'm saying?
Good money, yeah.
It is.
And it's not liras, so who do you think gave it to us? The Italians, and we're very grateful to our friends in Rome.
I mean, you know, the
Yes,
corona
sir.
phobia.
The what?
The corona.
Yeah.
It's how many people they die already entire the world. We have the number.
Well,
and how many get hit?
The World Health Organization, I think, is keeping tab on numbers from various countries. The amount of cases, we're very close to reaching 100,000 globally.
Wow.
Yeah, indeed. Great. Reem, it's all yours.